Hi Chewies, here's Alexander again. Well, several people of you demanded, they wanted to have a video about how to play Magic the Gathering, and who am I to decline my viewers? So, here it is, how to play Magic the Gathering. Let's first start with the colors. Magic the Gathering has 5 colors. First, white, then blue, black, red and green. Here you can see the basic lands for each of the color and one representative color card for that. First, white have the plains. You can see by this little sun symbol here, and you will see that later on. Then blue uses islands with a little blue drop. Then black uses the swamp with a black skull on it. Red uses mountains with a red fireball. And green uses forests with the green tree symbol. So, and here we have some corresponding cards. I know for the first start it is a little bit overwhelming what kind of card it is and all that stuff, but we will go there in time. So, we have here as an example a creature card from white. This is the core duelist. Then we have from blue an example for an enchantment card. Then for black we have here an instant card. For red we have a sorcery. And for green we have again an instant. So let's first dive into what does a card look like and what are the basic elements on a card. So, first of all, the background of the card is always this here. This is from the first edition and so on, always the same. So, then let's look for example at this card. We have here several things. First, in the upper left corner we have the name. Then we have here the mana costs. We go talk a little bit about that later. Then here we have the type of the card, so this is an enchantment. Here we have the symbol of the rarity and the set. So for example here we have the rarity black. This is a common card. Then we have the rarity silver here. This is an uncommon. This here is a rare card. It's gold. And then we have also even more rare cards, the mythics. For example, this here. This is then in copper orangey tone. The mythic rare. So next we have the card text. In normal writing is the rules of the card. And here in cursive letters we have sometimes a little bit background story to Magic the Gathering. So on creature cards we have also something here that is the strength and toughness. Then here this little number there, you might see that, that is the collector's number. This is card number 19 out of a set from 249 cards. Here also this symbol with the rarity symbolizes on what set this was in. For example, this here says it comes from the M10 set. This here from the 8th edition. And so on. So each set has its own symbol. Yeah, that were the features of the card, and we will now talk a little bit about the mana costs. Like before, we have here now our basic lands. those are the mana base for your spells and your creatures to summon all that kind of stuff. Each of the cards produces the amount of mana that is placed here on the symbols. So let's look at the cards. For example, we have here Giant Growth from green. Also to notice the color of the card itself. So this is green, this is black, here white, blue, and also a red card we have here. The spells you are casting have colors. Also there are colorless cards like artifacts or Eldrazi, but we will talk about them a little bit later. First we dive into the colors. So for example, you want to cast this spell, Giant Growth is an instant. You must pay 1 green mana. And to do that, for example, you have those 5 lands out there. You take this land and simply tap it. Tapping meaning you're placing the card on the side to determine that this land is used for that turn, and you have this mana now in your mana pool. And then you can spend it to cast this spell. Well, right now here is no creature to cast that on, so that's not an option. Then we have here, for example, Grasp of Darkness. This has a mana cost of 2 black mana. But right now we have only 1 black mana. The other mana sources are useless for that spell, so we can't use it. So the Core Duelist we could cast with just 1 white mana. Cowardice. He costs 3 colorless mana and 2 blue mana. Colorless mana, what is that? Well, each land produces mana in a specific color, but sometimes, like here on Cowardice, this mana here symbolizes that the source of the mana for the 3 mana here is not determined. So you could possibly cast this spell with every available mana. So for example, we had a mana base of this for 2 blue, like here, and then here this 3 cards. We will use this 2 blue, and then the green, the black, and also the white, and then we could cast this spell. So that's how mana costs are used in the game. There are also other sources of mana in the game. So beside the basic land, it stands here, it's a basic land, are also cards that are classified as just a land. Those are called a non-basic land or non-standard land, and they have different abilities like the basic lands. So for example, let's take a look at the Creeping Tar Pit here, for example. This has the ability, if you tap it, it adds 1 blue or a black mana to your mana pool. So in this case, you could choose what mana it produces. We simply ignore the other abilities of that here. So this land here, it is shining because it is a foil card. Sometimes you have that in your boosters for your little extra collectible touch. Well, whatever. Here, this land has the ability to produce colorless mana. So this is a mana that could be used for example, here the Cowardice, for this 3 mana, but not the blue manas here. So this is a mana producing land that only produces colorless mana. There are lots of other non-standard lands that do all kind of creepy stuff, but for now, for mana purposes, you have also dual lands that produces several different colors of mana, and lands that produce colorless mana. Well, if we talk about colorless mana, then we can't forget the artifacts in the game. Those are cards that are generally colorless. I say generally because there are some examples. But for now, we start with the artifact. Artifacts are this here. Normally you have to pay only colorless mana for them, so artifacts are a good thing to put into your deck for in every deck, because it can be paid by every mana source. So then you have sometimes creatures, like here for example the Eldrazi, that are colorless creatures. Those are not artifacts, but still colorless. So does it look? Then you have several different other types of artifacts, like for example your artifact equipment. This is something different than a normal artifact. Then you have artifact creatures. Those are like normal creatures but artifacts and colorless. And then you have sometimes, very rarely, artifact creatures that are colored. You can see that on the mana costs. For example, this artifact creature costs blue mana, and you see this blue line around the creature. That determines that this card is actually blue. So, and don't be hesitated by those cards. Those are from old Magic the Gathering sets. There were the artifacts actually brown instead of this gray color. So sometimes in the sets you have different color versions. So this two shades of gray are a little bit different, but that doesn't matter for the purpose of the game. So, beside the colorless and the colored cards, we have also multicolored cards. So, this, for example, are cards that are determined to have both colors. For example, this here, the spitting image. Let's zoom right in here. There you can see the mana costs for this card are blue or green. You could pick one for those. And though this card is on one side green and on one side blue, that means this card is both colors. On the other side, you have here the golden cards that also appear in several sets. You have to pay 2 different kind of mana for them, and so they are gold cards. But nevertheless, this card is white and blue, like, for example, the artifact creature I've shown you previously. Okay, we have now heard a little bit about the mana and the cards and so on, but now let's have a look at the game itself. So, you start up with your deck that must be at least 60 cards, no more, no less. You can have as much cards as you want, as long as you can mix the deck by your own without help. So, but a 60 card deck is normally the best way. Then you need a dice or something else to determine how much life points you have. So, then we have some zones in the game where a card could be. First zone is obviously your deck, or library also called. Then the second source where a card can be is your hand. At the beginning of the game you draw 7 cards. So, 7 cards. Those are representing your hand. So, this, for example, is my hand of 7 cards. This is zone number 2, where a card can be. Then, zone number 3 is in play. Zone number 4 is the graveyard. That is normally next to your library. And then zone number 5 is exiled. This is next to the graveyard. Yeah, and then you have also in tournaments your sideboard, but that's not relevant. So let's just see how we can actually play the game. So you have your cards. Well, you know that this is a sorcery and this is a land, but how to play? Okay, let's start. Each turn you are allowed to play 1 land card. So we have here a swamp, there's a plains, and then we have another swamp. So let's simply play that here into the playground. This is the in-game area, zone number 3. This swamp is now in play or on the battlefield. That are the terms on the cards. So, and with this land we can now cast our spells. Let's now look at the mana costs for our spells. So we have here one with a 1 mana cost. This here is 2 mana costs and a white. This here is also 1 black. So we could possibly cast these 2 things. So this here is a sorcery card that says choose 1, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or return 2 target zombie cards from your graveyard to your hand. But right now your graveyard is empty, so this card is right now relatively useless. So that leaves us with a Tormented Soul. Tormented Soul can't block and is unblockable. It is a 1/1 creature for 1 black mana. So to determine that this land has produced mana this turn, we tap it. Tapping means you turn it simply sideways and drawing the mana out of this land. With the mana at hand, you can cast now this creature. This creature is now summoning sick, means you can't attack immediately with it after it is casted. To represent it, half tap it. So that means it is not tapped, but not also ready to play. But you can still block with it. So then your opponent would have his turn. So our turn is done, and now it's turn of the opponent. He also draws 7 cards as his initial hand, like we did, but on his first turn he also starts to draw from his own library. So that's the advantage of being the second player. He starts actually with 8 cards and not with 7. So he also places a land out there, and he uses his mana now by tapping it to create this spell. Firebolt. For 1 red mana, Firebolt deals 2 damage to target creature or player. This is a sorcery card. It's a spell, and he targets now our creature. And with the 2 damage from this spell, the creature with 1 toughness is destroyed and moves to the graveyard. So then, after the spell is resolved, his spell also goes to his graveyard face up. The graveyard is always face up, and you can always keep track of what is in your graveyard, because there are actually cards that let you dig through the graveyard. Okay, it's now our turn again. The first thing you do at your turn is to untap everything. Every card, every land, every creature you have, all gets untapped. And then you draw a card from your deck. So, in your main phase, your the phase in where you can place lands and cast spells, you start with actually placing another land card from your allowed 1 land cards per turn on the battlefield. So this time I have decided to place a plains. So we have now the option to call for both card types, all the white cards and the black cards. So what have we actually drawn in this turn? We have here the Sanctuary Cat for 1 white mana. It's a 1/2 creature. So we have now 2 mana available, and with that we will cast now 2 things. 1 sorcery, this here. Choose 1, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Oh, how nice that we have already a creature card in our graveyard. So we will do that right now. Tap our swamp to pay for the black mana cost, and it gets resolved. So we just simply take back this card to our hand. And after that is resolved, the spell card, the sorcery, goes also to the graveyard. So now we have 1 plains left, and well, let's cast now the Sanctuary Cat. We drag again the white mana into our pool, to our mana pool, and with that we cast that spell. Summoning sick, so half tapped. And well, we can't attack. We have no mana to cast anything left, and now the opponent's turn is at stake. So we will now move a little bit along and see how combat works. So we have went ahead a little bit, a few turns. You can see now we have here 3 mana already, then our opponent has also 3 mana, and he has already 2 creatures out. So let's have a look. This creature seems to have some kind of counter on it. What does that mean? So let's have a look. This is a creature for 1 mana, and the ability Multikicker. It comes with a +1/+1 counter for each time you have multi-kicked this creature. So this dice representing 1 counter, it is on the creature, meaning that it is boosted from a 1/1 to a 2/2 creature. So let's see what this card says. We have a 1/1 creature for 2 mana. This is an artifact creature. We simply ignore the text that is written there. We just assume it's a 1/1. Okay, so our opponent has a 2/2 and a 1/1 creature. We have here still our Sanctuary Cat, a 1/2 creature. Then again our Tormented Soul, we resurrected from our graveyard, 1/1. That is unblockable and cannot block. And we have the Knight of Glory, a 2/1 creature with protection from black, but that doesn't matter because none of those are black. And Exalted, whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So let's assume the opponent's turn is, and he is attacking us. So attacking creatures are like lands, are tapped, and they are then attacking us. You have now the option to block or not block the creatures that are attacking. So let's have a closer look again at the creatures. Creatures, like I said, have power and toughness, meaning that that they deal with the power this amount of damage, also here, and the toughness is the amount of damage they can take until they are destroyed. Creatures that are fighting together are both striking at the same time, so they deal damage equally to getting damage. So if, for example, a 1/1 creature would fight against a 1/1 creature, they would both terminate each other, and they would wander to the graveyard. But still the Tormented Soul can't block, so this is out of the game right now. So for the purpose of blocking, we have here our Sanctuary Cat and our Glory Knight. So these 2 attacking creatures, a 2/2 and a 2/1 and a 1/1. We have now the option to block with those 2 creatures. Option number 1 would be to block the lizard here with a cat. The lizard is a 2/2 creature. He would deal 2 damage to the Sanctuary Cat and kill it. But the cat would instead deal 1 damage to the lizard and would not kill him. So, on the other hand, the knight, if he would block the lizard would deal 2 damage to the knight, and with his toughness of 1, he would be killed. But instead, with his 2 of strength, he would instead also kill the lizard, because he has also only a toughness of 2. So, these 2 creatures would annihilate each other. And here we have the 1/1 creature. If it is blocked by the cat, then the creature would deal 1 damage to the cat, and the cat would survive, but the cat would deal 1 damage back, and this here would be destroyed. And so that's the way I choose to block, because the one that is the player that is attacked get to choose which creature blocks the creatures of your opponent. Also, a possibility is that 2 creatures bind together and block one opponent, one creature, and letting the other creature pass through. In this case, let's assume these 2 creatures would block this creature here, the lizard. Then the game mechanics would work that way. You determine which one of the blockers is first in the block line. So you could also say here, okay, the knight is blocking first, and then the cat. Then the blocked creature would deal that amount of damage to the creature that is enough to kill it. So in this example, the lizard would deal 1 damage to the glory knight and kill him. He would deal 2 damage to the lizard, and the lizard would die, and the cat would survive. Let's assume this lizard had maybe 2 counters on it, so this would be then a 3/3 creature. In this case, it would go on. The knight would deal 2 damage to the lizard, bringing him to 1 toughness, and would be killed. And the cat would receive the additional 2 damage from the 3 strength of the lizard, but also deals the 1 damage that would finally kill the lizard. And that way, those both creatures would be destroyed, but also the tough lizard. Well, in our scenario here's only 1 counter, and we will block this way. The knight would block the lizard. They would kill each other, and then we would block the cat against the Soul Eater, and the Soul Eater would be destroyed, and the cat survives. So keep in mind that blocking creatures don't be tapped. So now the opponent has some weaknesses. He has no creature left to block, and now it's our turn. We have still our Tormented Soul and our Sanctuary Cat. In our turn, we would still simply draw a card, untap everything we have, and then after we have cast some spells, we can attack on our own. So now the opponent don't have any creatures out, and we attack. Now our creatures would deal damage according to their strength directly to the opponent. In this case, 1 from the Tormented Soul and 1 from the cat, meaning that the total life counter from 20 goes to 18. And this is how you defeat your opponent. The goal of the game is to bring your life total of your opponent to 0. So that wraps up the basic rules of Magic the Gathering. You have seen how to cast sorceries, you have seen how to play lands, and how to deal with creatures, how combat works. So there are also instances here, instant. You can also play with instants like sorceries. They are almost the same, and for the sake of this video, you can play an instant just like every sorcery in your main phase. Well, in the next video, we will talk about a little bit about the more complex things in Magic, about artifacts and enchantments and artifact equipments, legendary creatures, and all that crazy stuff. But for now, I hope you liked this little video, and we see us in the next one. Your Alexandra.